Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, Nostra has witnessed significant growth in the IT services space, and much of this growth can be attributed to its successful acquisition strategy. Masterminded by its founder, Kevin O'Loughlin, acquisitions account for a significant proportion of its growth, and Kevin joins us now to tell us more. Kevin, start by providing us with an insight into your early career.
Good morning, Karl. Lovely to meet you. I started in secondary school, went to Knockbeg in Carlow and loved my time there. And then I went on to DCU to do computer applications. I very quickly realised that I didn't want to sit in front of a computer doing programming all the time. So I actually left the course after 3 months and took a job as a help desk person on sort of £11,000 a year in 1999 in Dublin city centre. And over 6 years, I worked my way up in that role through service management into sales and sales management. And I finished up in 2006 as Chief Executive Designate when I just made a decision I wanted to work for myself. And I took 6 months out and figured out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And I launched Nostra in January of 2007 when I was 26 years old.
And where did you see the niche in the market for Nostra at the time?
So it was very simple. There was a product called VMware that had just hit the market, and we were, in my old role, we were selling servers to companies, and it just didn't feel right selling companies 10 servers when I knew there was technology that existed that meant they actually only needed to buy one. And there was a huge resistance to putting in that technology because ultimately companies made money from selling servers. That was the business model. So I wanted to start a dynamic, future-thinking IT business that would always be ready to go on the next iteration of tech. And ultimately, that's what Nostra is all about, which is our tagline is to simplify your IT. So what we do is we keep an eye to the future, which is Nostradamus is where our name came from, so looking to the future. So we want to see the next trends and be able to get on them fast and bring them to our customers.
And of course, there's more disruption in the IT market than in most markets. So in that respect, how do you manage to stay abreast of all of the advancements in it?
Well, we work very hard at it. First of all, both myself and one of my co-founders, Senan, are very into technology, and we attend an awful lot of technology shows around the world, and we would be involved in some of the biggest technology conferences globally. I'm also a board member of CompTIA, the training body based in the US. And, by stepping out of Ireland and by looking at what the biggest players in our space do around the world, we would spend, I would say, 4 to 6 weeks each out of Ireland looking for new technology every year and then bringing it back. And that's been an essential and critical part to us staying ahead.
And you're in business at this stage, 16 years. So how big has Nostra become and how many people do you now employ?
So we're just about to hit 300 people in the business. We are, this year, we're targeting revenues of 50 million. But our growth rate is quite fast. Our estimation is within 18 to 24 months from now, we'll be at 100 million and 500 people. We are acquiring a lot of companies at the moment, and the market is in a consolidation phase, and we're leading that in our specific space. We see Nostra becoming probably in the next 10 years one of the largest, if not the largest, IT company in Europe.
Who's your client base?
We have a very wide client base. So the first thing is the most common trait in our customer base, which is probably the best way to put it, is companies that have mission-critical technology. And by that I mean, if the technology isn't working, the business isn't able to function. And when that's a factor, then we're a good provider for somebody to look at. Our biggest customers would be in pharmaceutical. We'd have probably 30 or 40 of the larger and mid-size pharma businesses that operate in Ireland. Manufacturing would be a big space. We've got companies in interestingly, Ireland is a huge niche market in car part manufacturing and design and R&D. We have a lot of companies in that space. Food manufacturing. Companies that lastly, another sector will be financial services and regulated companies. So we would have a huge amount of credit unions that we'd look after up and down the country, and credit union groups, and particularly on the larger side. And we would help them with everything from security and compliance and regulation, right the way through to, being able to actually print and send emails.
And Kevin, a lot of your growth to date has been fueled by acquisition, I believe. Why have you chosen that particular growth strategy?
We grow each year by about 40%, and we effectively do half of that organic, which is putting new logos and new customers on our board, and we focus very much on doing that. Acquisitions does two things for us. Number one, it's about the people. It's very hard, as you know, to get people in this industry, and really good IT people tend not to move around in roles. So by acquiring companies, we end up with great resources and great people. So that's a key critical part. Secondly, because we have a very wide service offering, when we acquire a business, typically we do an awful lot more services than they do. And then over time, we're able to effectively give their client base access to everything else that we do. And we find it a great source of future growth. And it's worked really well for us. We've just completed our sixth deal with acquiring Definitive Solutions in Dublin. We'll be doing another deal this month, so bringing our third transaction for 2023. And
what do you look for in target acquisitions?
So the first thing is the people, and we monitor that by looking at client retention. So when I'm reviewing a customer or potential acquisition, the first thing I look at is client retention, and because that number, if they have a 95% client retention rate, the very first thing we know is that the customer base are well looked after. And if a customer base is well looked after, it's typically down to the people that look after them. Second thing we do is staff retention. So if we've good staff retention, good customer retention, it most likely means a good culture, and that's critically important. So we start there, and then what we're looking for is companies with really good customers, and customers that are in our space. So, if we're looking at, as an example, a company with €5 million revenue and they have 1,000 customers, it's much less appealing to us than a company with 5 million revenue and 100 customers. They have less customers, probably a higher quality, and customers that probably require IT at a much higher level, and they're much more appropriate for us.
And I know a red flag for you when considering an acquisition is in relation to overselling. Talk to us about that.
Well, our industry is an unusual one because, if you're going to buy a technology solution, the reality is that as the seller of a technology solution, we're the ones with the majority of the knowledge. And the risk is that the customer will be guided and led by the provider, and there is a huge challenge where through scare tactics or through fear, you will actually get a customer to buy far more than they actually require. And it is a huge issue. A lot of customers that we win, we see that they have technology that they need. We see they have servers that are way too big for them. They have too many servers. They've got too many firewalls. They have too complex firewalls. So when we look at that, right, it's a very hard culture to deal with. And we find that if we hire a salesperson, as an example, and they've come from a culture of overselling, they don't like our environment because we will block a sale if it's not the right thing for a customer. So we've a term in our business that if you wouldn't sell it to a family member, you can't sell it to a customer. And it's a really interesting and very simple check, but that check actually means quite a lot that you end up downsizing a solution. And we downsize solutions all the time. So when we're buying a company, if we see consistent history of selling too much technology and particularly too much hardware to their clients, we tend to walk away at an early point.
And while acquisitions provide a rapid way to grow a business, they pose their own challenges, including integration and staff retention, amongst others. What have been your experience of those?
Really positive, and we did our first acquisition in 2015, and we've been doing them quicker and quicker. So we did one in 15, we did one in 18, we did one in 2020, one in 21, and we're going to do 5 this year, right? So we're getting faster at it. So for us, we go in and we very much focus in the first 90 days at getting the staff to understand why we did it. And the more that we do, the more they realise we're doing it to get them onto our team. And when they realise that, I suppose the fear of job loss disappears, because that's never a factor, never been a factor for us. So we want to settle the team and make sure they're okay. The second thing we want to do is get out and meet the customers and make sure that they know that, things aren't going to change, except they're going to have a wider product set. And then what we do is we have a very unique way of bringing in service departments in particular, and we've effectively kept them more or less intact for all the acquisitions that we've done. Now, intact but integrated. So we effectively build out our service departments internally in Nostra almost by acquisition. And it's a very useful way of doing it. So we might bring in the service department and we might grow it out to add 10 or 15 or 20 more customers, and we grow it to a specific size with a specific number of people, but we leave it intact. And that's really good for the retention of the team and the retention of the customers. But one of the best things that we've ever done is, from the second one, we got the team that we acquired to be a big part of the decisions of how to integrate, and that's been a game changer for us.
And of course, we've seen the insurance broker market heating up over recent years in relation to a lot of UK providers coming in to buy Irish brokers. Are we seeing similar impacts in relation to the IT services market yet?
Well, there has been a couple of companies been acquired by international players. So, in recent weeks, PFH Technology was acquired by the global print company called Ricoh. And we're seeing some deals like that, like Arcfire a couple of years ago, acquired by Presidio in the US. In our space, that's not necessarily existing at the moment. And probably because if you look at the insurance market, you're not in constant contact with a customer. You're not necessarily providing a daily service. The intensity of what's required is much lower, so integration, once it's done, is much easier. In our space, we're typically acquiring companies and adding layers of management and adding elements of structure, and we have to continue to provide the service because we are ultimately a mission-critical service for our customers, and we understand that. So it's probably unlikely a foreign player will come in and consolidate the mid-market where we are, and for us at the moment, we operate, I suppose, really quick. We're acquiring lots. We're in conversations with lots. And the real driver for acquisitions in our space and the reason companies are selling is predominantly around security. Any IT company, like any other company, is only one cyber breach away from being in serious trouble. And if you don't have the skills, they're not easy to get, and they're not easy to build. So a lot of companies without security divisions are exiting the market at the moment.
And after the incredible growth story which you've enjoyed with Nostra to date, what actually motivates you and inspires you?
Well, lots of things inspire me. I'm married to Lisa, my wife, and I have two young boys and a young girl, Alex. So, for me, it's about building the company to a point that I can get away on a holiday with the kids and spend time with them, get home in the evenings and enjoy it. Like my own personal objective over my lifetime, I've said it before publicly, I really enjoy and get a kick out of helping people. It's always been in my DNA. And I have a very kind of lofty ambition that over my lifetime I can actually impact and help the lives of 1 million people. I'm a long way off that. And really what I want to be able to do is to build Nostra to a point that it's a machine that can both deliver amazing jobs and roles for lots of people.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Kevin O'Loughlin from Nostra, and I've no doubt that the company will continue on its upward growth trajectory.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.